All right, so welcome to Integral Podcast. Today, I'm speaking to someone that I've already kind of been stalking online a little bit and heard speak before. And today, I'm really looking forward to delving into a topic that's very dear to my heart and to our community's heart around design and future. But before we start, please tell us, who are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. My name is Mardis Bagley. It's a very strange name. I am based in San Francisco, and my appearance and my name will not tell you that I'm actually from France. So yeah, I'm a designer and a futurist. That's how I present myself today. It changes about every year. And what I do is that for a living, I turn science fiction into reality for a better future. And I do it by creating physical experiences with wearables, with different types of electronics, with architecture. And I really put a lot of emphasis on turning these ideas into reality, right? I'm not particularly interested in concepts or in PowerPoints or big visions of something that doesn't get real. It's really turning things into products and experiences that humans can experience physically. That interests me.
So, to what extent is your self-identification related to what you do? Talk to us a little bit about that, because one of the fascinating topics is with that question, who are you? A lot of people and answer it from what I would describe as doing realm. What I do is who I am. And I think this, as we talk, this will be more and more relevant. But to what extent does what you do define who you are?
I would say it's a very big part of my waking days, in the sense that I experience things as a human being on this planet all the time. I observe things and I take what I learn from the world, the connections that I have with others, and I bring that into the work that I do, right? Observing humans and really observing the future of how humans are going to react to the future of work, to the future of their well-being is very, very important to me. So in that sense, it's connected. And like all of us, I'm also many other things, right? I find pleasures and pains in many other things that are completely unrelated to work. Yeah, but it's the fact that I'm kind of like an alien in a lot of places. I am French living in the US, so by definition, I'm an alien. And I walk in a room with my blue hair and most people are wondering who I am, why I look like this. And I love that. I love the fact that I come from the outside and observe what's happening. I like when people have an influence on me as much as when I have an influence on them. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's any subject that I'm not interested in. I'm interested in neuroscience as much as I'm interested in politics and in history, in the tactile world as much as the digital world, as the future as much as in the past. So really, it's all about stories and about what the human capacity has given us and is giving us every day.
Right. So let's. I was maybe thinking of introducing the book a bit later, but actually feels right now a good time to just sort of tell us, everyone, that you're writing a book called Design for a Better Future. Give us a little sort of synopsis about that book.
So I've been spending the last 15 years basically turning different types of technologies into products that people can use, right? And I've come up with some realizations about how the world works. So let's say there are three groups of people who work in science, people who work in tech, and people who work in design. I'm a person who works in design, but I also reach out to scientists, to the way they think about things. And I reach out to technologists and really understand why they're making the decisions they're making, right? And I realized that a lot of these people work in silos, right? When you talk to a scientist, very smart in the way they're developing their knowledge in the field they're specializing in, but for the most part they're not very good at reaching out to a user or reaching out to mixing what they have with the technology to or design to create something that is relevant to this world, right? A lot of papers or presentations that end up in scientific journals, a lot of people have no knowledge about, and I thought it was really too bad, right? As a designer, as someone who really cares about humans and about bettering everybody's condition, and I hear every day about these incredible research and technology outcomes that nobody knows about. So knowledge is number one. Number two is about translating that. How do I take that research outcome? How do I take that technology and merge them together? Give it a design that doesn't scare away users, and then really change people's lives from there, right? So that would be kind of like the premise of why this book exists. I want the world to understand that merging cutting edge technology, groundbreaking science and well thought out design can actually change the world. And for the most part, when you work in R&D or in everything that's at the forefront of innovation of tomorrow, a lot of people think of, oh, this is only for rich countries. This is only for people who can afford it. But that's where good design comes in, right? We can take these technologies, we can actually optimize them in a way that's that can reach people living in rural parts of different types of continents, right? So and I believe that someone who's open-minded enough and well-rounded enough in different types of lingos, in different fields, can be that bridge and can turn these wonderful ideas into reality.
And so, to what extent is the world that we live in today more full of problems than the world from, let's say, 100 years ago? Or are we living in a better world today or a worse world than 100 years ago? And why? Just describe that a little bit to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I wouldn't say it's worse or better. It's worse and better. It's what we know of the history of 100 years ago, for example. People's knowledge and sensitivity of what happens to them is clearly different from what's today. For example, when we talk about work, for the most part, people had a job and a career and kept it most of their lives back then, right? So and that was not something that was questioned. That was a standard. So the standards of living are very different 800 years from now than today. So and today the expectation is, I'm going to be 30 years old. I'm going to be going through 4 or 5 different careers in my life. I will have different expectations and different, ways of seeing that. I will see good things in it. I will see bad things in it, and I'll move on, right? And one thing that I think is positive about the world we live today is options, right? It's not because I live in the middle of nowhere, sub-Saharan Africa, that I have no hope. If I have access to good tutors or the internet or technology or anything that I have access to, I can actually change my life for the better. I think the opportunity is a lot better, and that can be applied to everything. Wellness, for example, people talk a lot more openly about mental health, even physical health today than ever did. And sure, it sounds like people are more sick or more in a place of distress today, but that's because there's talking more about it. It's something that's out in the open. That doesn't mean that 100 years ago people didn't experience mental health, right? So I do like that openness in transparency of knowledge, of being open to talk about things. So each of us knows what's better and what's not, and each of us can act on it, right? We have access to technology, digital technology, physical technology. We have access to research. We have access to a million different startups that are developing new options for us to get better, right? But it all starts with consciousness, right? Am I conscious that I am in a place of joy versus a place of fear or pain? And I was taught fairly recently that there's a very large percentage of the population on this planet that's actually not aware that they exist, in the sense that they're not aware that they should be feeling happy or sad. They just exist. And that kind of blew my mind because, as designers, you and I, we're very aware of feelings, of reactions, of, what's negative and positive and how we control that, because that's what we do for a living. But yes, a lot of people are actually not aware of that. And that would help a lot of those people to have technology and science in front of them that opens the door for them.
So when you're thinking about future, what is the typical time span that you're thinking in? Because sometimes, I would ask people, if I identify their age as, let's say, 30, I would ask them, where do you see yourself in next 30 years? And then they kind of sit back and go, oh, that's a whole lifetime. And said, yeah. So, if you, right now, you're suddenly put into a position where you can plan a whole entire life ahead. And most people have never even thought about that idea, let alone attempted that. So what's your time span that you're thinking about in terms of future?
So it varies a lot, and I would say the future is also the present and the past, in the sense that there's a lot of things that exist today that a lot of people are not aware of, right? For example, we recently designed a AR headset for firefighters so they can see through smoke, right? That sounds completely like science fiction, but it's brand new, and it's changing, the way we think about on-site information and saving lives. So yeah, the future is now, is where I would start. And then because I work in hardware and architecture, we are developing things that are coming out in 2 or 3 years. That's typically how long it takes for these products to develop. So it's quite quick. It doesn't sound like far from now, but technology moves so fast. And as designers and technologists, we have to think ahead of the curve in the competition. That 2 or 3 years is actually a lot. And then it goes all the way to 100 years from now. One of our specialties is to work in aerospace, and thinking about how people are going to explore or live on Mars. Because that's coming, whether you want it or not, and might as well be at the forefront of the thinking and the doing in architecture, engineering, systems design, and everything that goes with it. So yeah, it's and a lot of the work that we do is also not static. We don't design for 10 years from now, and then design for like the year after. We design for 10 years from now. We design a concept that will evolve over time. For example, we're currently designing a new educational system for Singapore and Japan. And we are designing it in a way where the minute the school is built, it will start evolving. The minute a child enters that room, it will start evolving, because we're giving tools, digital tools and physical tools to each child to actually modify that school to fit the needs, right? And I think that's one thing that's very, very exciting about the future, is that we have more and more technologies that allows us to customize experiences per individual. So one of my biggest complaints about Silicon Valley based design is that a lot of the times we try to design for the masses or the average or a certain persona, that is created, and I find it very wrong in many ways, because each of us live differently. Each of us have different homes and different expectations and different understanding of technology, of literacy and computers and all that. So really creating solutions that are adaptive to each of us is important, especially when you start working for different continents or different regions within continents, and really understand that, sure, there are certain assumptions that we're making here sitting in Silicon Valley that are completely not true in other parts of the world, right? And also in Silicon Valley, we need to stop thinking that we're at the top of everything, that we have the solution to the future of everything. We actually need to travel. We actually need to sit into people's homes, into talking to those people who seemingly don't have any connection to technology or the future, and really see where they can bring us, because they are the people who are going to bring richness to the work that we do, right? I'm tired of seeing, Black speakers and, white whatever. It's like anybody can do that. Why do you need to be a big name? Let's take risks. Let's bring, as I said, richness to the world we live in.
Gosh, there's so many different questions I'd like to ask you, but I think my next question is for you to describe, what does the word better mean?
And it's really related to what I just said. Better is an individual way of seeing things. I can't say that something is better for the entirety of the planet. I mean, perhaps if we think about consuming less and going from oil-based plastic to something else, that is perhaps like better for the planet. But when we talk about user experience, when we talk about physical experience, multisensory experience, connections, it's better is something that works for me without me having to work too hard for it. Something that I have access to, that I can afford, that I can physically have access to as well, right? And something that truly brings something to my life. It's not an instant, hype type of experience where I'm going to buy a pair of sneakers, I'm going to like them for 2 weeks and then move on to something else, right? That is not bringing much to people's lives. But if you think about healthcare, for example, if we eliminate pain in the future, as a long-term goal, what are the steps that we need to go through in order to get to that goal, and that is what's going to make the world a better place from a healthcare standpoint, right? And you can apply that to every industry. Education. The future of education is accessible to all, and really brings the idea of lifelong learning to every single citizens of the world. All that thing. So how do you step back? How do you make it accessible to everybody? How do you kill the bureaucracy and the lack of funding that is pushing a lot of education to make the wrong decisions today? So yeah, it's an exercise of forward and backwards. That's why I like to connect the idea of better with the future, because the future gives us hope. The future gives us an idea of what the roadmap is, and yeah. So better is more individual. Better is global. Better is about fitting the needs, because a lot of assumptions are about in the world of tomorrow, everybody wants to connect. Well, not everybody wants to connect, right? That's kind of a bold assumption. Like some people just want to live in the middle of nowhere and not ever talk to anyone. How do you serve them? And really, it's that diversity in the life that people want. Diversity in neurodiversity. Everybody thinks differently. Everybody learns differently. Everybody is happy differently, right? So how do you adapt to that? Yeah, as designers, how do you make that better?
Right. So I think it's only fair because I've asked you what's future, what's better. The next question is naturally then I'm kind of going in reverse order. What is design? Now I'm going to give you three definitions of design and see if you can, if you vibe with any of them or maybe all of them, but maybe you have your own definition. One of the definitions I came across that works quite nicely is design is applied philosophy. Second one is from Steve Jobs, design is how things work. And the third one is design is moving things from the current state to future state. Do any of those definitions work for you? And also, what is your definitions? How do you think of design?
I think it would be all three of them, right? And actually, none of them individually. I actually disagree with all three statements, but altogether they make sense. And that's what's wonderful about design. It's very, very hard for me to define to people what I do for a living when I tell them I'm a designer, because it touches upon so many things, right? Certain projects are very global. They're really thinking about the long-term future. They're really thinking about systems, about how people react to things. And sometimes it's something very small, like a piece of electronic that's coming out in 2 years. And what I love about design and how people practice it is that flexibility. The fact that design can touch, the smallest, corners of different industries, as well as lead, decisions. But as I said in the beginning of this call, good design for me is application. It's because otherwise you're designing for designers or you're designing for blogs. Who cares about that stuff? I mean, some people care. I don't. And to me, good design is about reach, right? Reach along the way by user testing, by making sure you're making the right decisions, that you're making sure the value is enough for everybody involved, whether it's the user or the company who's paying for it, or manufacturer, whoever. So yeah, it's design is to me, it's everything. Life doesn't exist without design, because everything has an order and everything has a meaning and everything is here for a reason, hopefully. So yeah, how do I define design? It really depends. It really depends what it is. It's one thing I can tell you about design is that it is one of the most difficult things to do, in the sense that if you see the old model of the brain, where they say left brain is about science and all that stuff, and the right brain is about creativity. No, it's the opposite. It's about creativity. It's really the use of both. There's an enormous amount of logic and taking information from R&D teams as much as creativity and leading by intuition and mixing them all together, right? And another thing about design that I would like to put forth is the way I practice it is a little bit different, in the sense that I lead a lot with what we have in us. So each of us have experiences with life. We've traveled, we've talked to different people, we've learned from other people's wisdoms, we have a certain sense of intuition that we've developed over time, etc. So I really want to push people, but specifically designers, to lead with what they have in them, meaning intuition, personal experience, and what's the third one? There's a third one, I can't remember. Anyway, before doing research, because the problem with research is that a lot of the time research kind of bogs you down. You're like, oh, I've seen this shape works. And even though you want to do something different, your brain is going to automatically come back to that shape, right? And it's going to be very, very difficult for you to mentally think outside of what works. So that's why we do a lot of like that kind of creative work together at the office when we're together. And I'm having everybody not look at Google, not research anything, and really lead with what they already have in them. And I believe that what people already have in them is a lot richer, a lot more personal, a lot more personable than any PowerPoint of research can tell you. That's been my experience. It is, and also it's a lot more fun to work that way, right? Because then you really dig deep into people's experiences. Everybody has, you know, neutral experiences, and everybody has extraordinary experiences. And you really want to take these nuggets of experience to build something that really means something to your user.
You know, that's so funny you say that, because throughout my design career, I've approached things that way. And it was frowned upon by the stakeholders, by other designers. I'd say I want to first have a go at designing my own thing without any research whatsoever, just like having a go. It might take a couple of days or whatever. It's just like literally like a really rough thing.
Mhm.
Then, you know, maybe I'll chuck that into the river, so to speak. You know, it's complete waste. But at least I got that sort of intuitive sensing out of the way. Um, so many people told me that's an anti-pattern, you know, it's, you should first do research, etc. But I continued doing it all my life, and it's, you know, if I was to compare with other people's, you know, output and so on, my designs are by and large, you know, done better, because I didn't lose that connection with my inner original sensing intuition. At least I knew what that was to start off with, and then when I do research, I know what I'm getting from the outside. Now, this actually perfectly leads into two questions that I've got in my mind. One is that you've done quite a bit of design for outer space, quite literally Mars rovers, blah blah blah. Talk to us a little bit about what you've done there, just to skim, but also what it's like to be designing for outer space.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did that a long time ago. I actually quit that career about 15 years ago, and I'm slowly coming back to it, which is interesting. We're talking today. So, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astrophysicist. That's what I wanted to be, and I didn't grow up in an environment where going to college was the thing. But I knew very early on that I was a creative person, right? Creating things that didn't exist was very much part of my DNA. So when I went to design school, studying industrial design, the school I attended just happened to open the aerospace department, you know, designing, you know, crew transfer modules and habitats and rovers and things like that. And then eventually I studied in Houston as well to get my master's in that. So that's the why I got in there. Now, what I did there is that really working with, you know, system engineers, architects, and designers to figure out how people are going to go to Mars. You know, what are the physical, physiological, psychological implications of being isolated from the rest of humanity for 2+ years. It will take an average of 2.5 years to go to Mars, stay there for a while, and then come back. That is dependent on the, you know, planetary mechanics, and really that was fascinating to me, because we were working in a world where it was very hard to make assumptions. Right, on Earth, you make the assumptions that, oh, I see a door, all I have to do is pull the lever down and open the door. Well, in space, you can't do that. You have to hold on to something, you know, on the wall, typically a handle, and then you have to use your other hand and open the door, and while most likely your feet are like touching that surface as well, you know, and do that. So working in microgravity or in partial gravity when you're on the moon or Mars was very exciting. You know, sure, it was challenging, but it was also killing all the assumptions that I had about intuition, you know, human intuition, and really the psychological aspect of how design can influence the well-being of astronauts is very important. Another thing that I tried to push very hard back when I worked in it was trying to stop thinking of astronauts as these highly trained superhumans. Sure, they're amazing in many ways, but they're also still human. You know, they have good days, they have bad days, they get tired, they get sick. You know, all of that like us. So really bringing back the human in astronauts was what was very important to me. And there are ways of doing that with the environments they were put in, whether it's work environments, you know, a growing environment, a personal environment, a hygienic environment. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there, and we're actually coming back to that world right now. And I'm so glad that, you know, the private sector is stepping up and saying, hey guys, we're not going to wait for NASA to do this. Let's innovate right now. And that's been so exciting to see how the space industry has evolved over time. Because sure, we're going to go to Mars to explore, and then, you know, we're going to go to the moon to mine, and then there's going to be space tourism, and then, you know, people are going to want to visit Mars, you know, as tourists, or live there, or give birth to their children there, or, you know, all of that. You know, some people are like, so why are you doing this? You know, we are explorers. Human beings, since the dawn of times, have been, you know, walking or flying or bicycling somewhere. So that's not stopping. And if technology allows us to get there, we will get there.
Yeah. You know, when you mentioned Houston, I was almost going to interject and said, do they still have a problem there? But the question that follows on from designing for outer space is, what's it like designing for inner space? 3 years ago, I designed a program called Fresh Mind, which actually is more of a kind of mindset redesign process, which helps people clear up outdated programming that doesn't work anymore and install new ways of thinking. What has been your experience of designing for inner space?
So, yeah, I mean, inner space is quite broad. So you saw one of the talks that I did for transformational technology, which is a wonderful group that has been incredibly supportive in developing that world where a bunch of startups and established companies are finding solutions for well-being, human flourishing, and many other things. So I really think about the future as this positive place, right? And it's not only from an inner place as a human, but also as a society, as a city, as, you know, humans on the planet. And they really understand that in order to support humans in the future, you have to start from the inner place and then influence others, right? The way TransTech is talking about it is that they believe that what we call technology in the future is actually going to be transformational technology. So as a default, right? So yeah, there are so many technologies, sensing technologies, you know, hardware variability, galvanic skin response, EEG. There's you know, vibroacoustic technology that can help you eliminate pain and relax you. There's VR, there's AR, there's, you know, so many technologies that are being developed right now that are slowly, you know, connecting with each other, right? It's the future of prosthetics, for example. You know, what if we stop thinking of prosthetic as something that you know, takes a person with disability and turns them into a normal person? What if it turned them into superhumans, you know? And you can see a lot of that in, you know, the Paralympics, for example. I mean, what they do is incredible in many ways. So the potential is there. The technology is already, for the most part, here as the seed of what is going to be extraordinary in the future. But it's about outreach, right? A lot of these technologies, a lot of these startups are reaching out to early adopters, people who are willing to put things on their brains and see what happens, right? And yeah, it's balance as well, right? Here we're all in crisis because we're working from home, or learning remotely. It's very disturbing right now. But every disruption in the history of humans have been a wonderful opportunity for innovation. So let's take the technologies and the science we have today, and then mix it with good design, and really give solutions to those people, right? And it can help everything, right? Technology can help with inner peace. It can help with really understanding who you are and how your body reacts to things as your body ages and changes. It's really about customization. If I design something for epileptics, it's not one product for all epileptics, right? There are different kinds, and different epileptic people have different reactions to different environments. So really using that data, that very rich data that we have access to by putting out more products, is going to fine tune that knowledge that we have, and give out better design, right? Another thing is ergonomics. That's something that I love to do myself, and people on my team is, we can't design a product very quickly, with very simple shapes like spheres or rounds, or like very, very simple curves, and expect it's going to fit most people. There's a lot of very complex geometry that comes with things that actually fit. I mean, think of your own body. There's not one straight line on it. Everything is kind of curved in a weird compound way. And unfortunately, a lot of designers, are not interested in that. And the reason for that is that, for the most part, it's very easy to make it look ugly, right? And who wants to invest time in that? But really, when you design something, and then you've put it in a place where it works, it changes people's lives, and it's beautiful and gives value to the people, that's what good design is, right? And with practice, with good discipline, you can get to a place where these products actually inspire more people to use.
I've actually, in last, let's say, 3 to 5 years, I've found it much simpler and easier to just think that no matter what I'm designing like a living thing. Even
Yes.
a piece of software is a living thing, because at the beginning it doesn't have any data, and then the users fill it up with all sorts of stuff, and then it needs to be deleted, edited, changed, it evolves, new functionality, something goes out, something comes in. And the best way for me to keep sane while doing that is to think of it as a living thing, even if it's a piece of hardware. And so that seems to be a kind of trend that won't stop, that things like, I don't know, a coffee cup is becoming more and more living, sentient, and conscious. So just as a final sort of closing question, what is that? What does that say to you in terms of like designing living things? Can you comment on that?
So when people think about digital solutions, digital products, they think of it as agile, right? They're like, okay, I'm going to put out a prototype, and then I'm going to put it in front of users, and then these users are going to give me data, and I will refine over time. And then the product, hopefully, will get better over time. So that's an agile way of developing products. Traditionally, hardware is very waterfall, in the sense that I develop a design, I engineer it, do the whole product development process, and I cut a tool, and then that's it. That's what it looks like. If you don't go through the whole process of testing extensively with humans along the way, you're going to run into the risk of making mistakes. And hardware mistakes are very, very expensive mistakes, right? And it can basically plunge a company into bankruptcy. So one thing that I'm seeing more and more, and one thing that we're actually practicing here, is that we're trying to turn hardware design into something a little bit more agile. We understand that it can't be as agile as we want to be. It's getting there with like a lot more advancement in 3D printing, rapid prototyping, merging with mass manufacturing. but we're not there yet, right? I think we can do it with like small products and quite expensive products, but really designing something that truly fits people, their needs at the time they need it, is something that's going to come with time and development. There are other types of technologies that we're also integrating, like computational design. So basically, the idea behind computational design is that instead of building every single curve from the product you're designing, perhaps it's you input data like mathematic calculations, basically, that says that, oh, this person is 5'4" and they need a product that is this big. Therefore, we're gonna build it by just typing a bunch of numbers and then print it, and then that product works for them, right? And that's very, very different from typical mass manufacturing with injection molding plastic and all that. So we're getting there. More and more our clients are asking us to get into 3D printing, and there are companies out there that are developing really, really cool products. Like Carbon has developed some cool 3D footwear, midsoles and all that, or helmets for football players that really fit the people's heads. But it takes a lot of development. It takes a lot of testing. You have to calibrate a lot of the machines, and yeah, it's gonna get there eventually. There's so many opportunities out there, and also testing. For a long time, to test a product, you had to like physically make prototypes. You had works like prototypes. You have works like look like prototype, and now we can do part of it in VR, for example. If you build a piece of furniture, you can actually build in 3D and have someone walk in the VR experience and see how it fits in their home, right? And it's really about the speed, about the accuracy, and about integrating users in the process as early as possible.
Yeah, and there's so much awareness needed as well about what other products are already in the marketplace, what their pros and cons are. When I was working with Rolly, we're like every day unpicking a piece of musical equipment down to every single detail and going, oh, look how they've got like this kind of really thin thing here that saves millimeter of space and so on. It was quite crazy. And nobody was brave enough to bring in a piece of kit from home that they really liked musically, because one of the engineers would just unpick it into its constituent bits, and it said like, oh dear, my favorite piece of tool has now become parts, and then they would put it back together, and you'd like go, oh my gosh, that still works. Yeah, so that made me aware so much about how complex design is. For now, I'm conscious of time. Tell us a little bit about the book and who you're looking for, because you're writing it. You're looking for people to subscribe to your funding page. Just tell us a little bit about that quickly.
Yeah, so I decided about a month ago to start writing a book about design, and how if you merge it with good technology and good science, you can actually come up with solutions that can change the world for the better. And I'm going to talk to everybody. Children can read that book, as well as people who practice design or technology or science. But it's really a book about showing the opportunity of linking, right? We have technologies today that allow us to talk to each other in a way where we can actually solve things together, right? It's not about the scientist in its corner with its PhD, talking about how fantastic their discovery is. That means nothing if nobody can actually benefit from their discovery. So and also I'm going to talk a lot about methodology, about how design is evolving and how it should evolve, right? There's a lot of very obsolete practices in design that I want to point out. Education in design, and also again, the connection between design and the rest of the world, right? A lot of people see design as something elitist, as something that, oh, it's designed by somebody specific, therefore it's more expensive, therefore I cannot afford it. That is not what design is. For the most part, design is about taking a problem and turning into something that is attainable, right? Yeah, it's a book that in the process of writing. I am doing a crowdfunding campaign on Publishizer. I think if you go on Publishizer and type in "Design for a Better Future" or type in my name, Phnam Bagley, you will find the campaign. And I'm in the process of raising some money in order to attract publishers. So I've never written a book before, but I've done a lot of public speaking over the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of public speaking on the subject of design, or the subject of design for a better future, sustainability, etc. So I believe in sharing information, in the sense that, you know, the more we share, the more people are interested in getting the field, the more we get advancements in good design for everybody. So I'm asking for support. You can pre-order the book. I think the minimum you can order at this point is 5 books, all the way to 100 books. If you are in a university, if you are a bookstore, if you are a corporation that's interested in taking technology, science, and design and putting it forward in a better future, I would love your support.
Awesome. And how is that experience for you of writing a book, even though it's early days? Are you feeling excited, overwhelmed, confused, lost, spot on with everything?
So all of the above. One thing that taught me a lot is that because I've done public speaking on the subject before, so it started with transcriptions, with the way I've organized my thoughts. So that's where I'm starting. And then I have my ears open to every new ways of thinking, every new technology, every new science discovery out there that I could inject into this book. So this is perhaps a call for people who are developing something that's truly meaningful for the future of humanity to reach out to me and say, hey, I'm developing this thing. It's, you know, not much right now, but I know in the future it's going to become something, and I would love to talk about it, you know, as a case study in the book.
To what extent is designing of processes a design goal in your mind? Because right now we're pitching for a project where actual process to deal with something is a potential and valid design output and outcome. Just tell me that a little bit about that, please.
So process is a word that comes up when people, you know, shop around for design firms, and it's a very difficult question for me to answer, because I believe that every single project should have their own process, right? I can't go on the website and say, hey, we apply the basic fundamental principles of design thinking to everything that we do. That is not the case, right? There are certain processes that take 4 phases, some processes that take 60. That's because we're multidisciplinary as well, right? For example, we apply lean product development, which is the overlapping of different disciplines in order to mitigate risk and get to results faster. And really merging the creatives with the technical, with the markets, with manufacturing is very important to us. So to me, the idea of talking about process is, again, very specific. What are you doing, and how I, as a creative, as a designer, can help you think beyond where you're thinking, right? Because a lot of people naturally, that's how humans are built. They naturally, go towards a goal that's kind of already exists, or is like maybe a step away from what's out there, but they don't think about the timeline in a innovative way, right? Every time we work with the clients and we start talking about process, we're here to blow their socks off and to show them that it's possible, that they can be the first company in the world to do the things that we want to do with them. And that's exciting for everybody, right? I mean, I hope that more people in the world are more interested in changing the world for the better while being profitable. That's extremely important, right? Attracting funding, if you are in a startup stage, or actually getting enough money to continue the history of your company is as important to them than it is to us, because that's how we build relationships, right? And really the process of holding hands basically with our clients along the way, you know, developing hardware and developing architecture can be nightmarish at times. It's just the nature of it, and we'll do that together, and it's going to be wonderful. We're going to cry together. It's going to be great. But then when you realize that when the product comes out and nobody else has done it before, and then you end up with those wonderful patents, and you can tell a story that's truly unique, and then you can see very clearly that it's changing people's lives. There's no better feeling than that.
Totally. I thank you so much for having the conversation with me. You know, here it is to designing better future. And I trust, you know, I was going to ask you a question, is future better than today? But it's already in the title of your book. So design for a better future is definitely happening. And if anyone can, we can, with your leadership and everyone else, you know, that joins the movement, basically. I feel like design is more important than ever before, and we're having to encompass so many more things, more considerations, more people, life, infrastructure, ecosystems, and so on. So I feel like this book that you're writing is absolutely necessary today, and most likely is going to spawn a lot of different amazing designers, processes, hardware things, systems, software, living things, you know, that eventually evolve. So thank you so much for speaking to me, and looking forward to, you know, the book itself.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a wonderful time.
Awesome. Thank you.